26 midterm elections are coming up. Civil war is breaking out within the GOP over just how deep the cuts in Medicaid are wanted by the conservative hawks within the party. They the deep cuts don't go far enough, and they want the cuts to go much deeper than anticipated. Tyrone Bowman live. According to The Hill, fiscal hawks are lashing out over what they say are the lack of Medicaid reforms in President Trump's legislative package, which could thwart the House GOP's goal of passing the legislation next week. The grips from conservatives are centered on the House Energy and Commerce Committee's portion of the sprawling package, which beefs up work requirements for Medicaid and imposes more frequently eligibility checks, but stops short of more substantial changes such as siphoning federal funding away from the states. In my opinion, they don't go far enough, said Representative Eric Burleson, a representative from Missouri, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, who does not support the package. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, found the panel's work could reduce deficits by more than $880 billion by 2034, exceeding the instructions laid out in the budget resolution. But hardliners such as Burleson are unconvinced by the CBO's funny math. I really don't trust the CBO's score, said Burleson, who told reporters he was shocked the cuts weren't larger. At the end of the day, we have a $2 trillion deficit, and the fact that we're shuffling the chairs on the top of the Titanic here, he said, so we've got to do more, quote, close quote. Representative Ralph Norman, a representative from South Carolina, another deficit hawk in the Freedom Caucus, said he spoke out against the bill during the conference's closed-door meeting Wednesday morning. Along with several others, he wants substantial changes. I'm not fixing this because I'm trying to get something for South Carolina, he told reporters after the meeting. I'm trying to get the math in order to get the country back on track financially, and it just doesn't happen, quote, close quote. Pardon me. One of the biggest compliments from conservatives, one of the biggest complaints from conservatives revolves around the work requirements, which demand, now listen to this, listen to what they want people to do in order to get Medicaid benefits. One of the biggest complaints from conservatives revolves around the work requirements, which demand Medicaid enrollees take part in at least 80 hours of community engagement, including work, community service, or a work program. That provision, however, would not take effect until the beginning of 2029, which hardliners say is far too late. What? Are you serious? The mitigated audacity that these people want people who probably have already worked, put in their time, 10, 20, 30, and 40 years, retired. You want them to get out and go back to work in order to get Medicaid benefits. Literally, that's like a parent telling their 25-year-old living in the basement, you've got to get a job and move out. But you know what? I'm giving you 4 years to do it. It's ridiculous. Nobody works that way, said Representative Andy Harris, a Republican from Maryland, the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. Representative Warren Davison, a Republican from Ohio, echoed that sentiment, saying he was a little disappointed. Delaying a lot of these things are like hollow promises, he added. They'll cut that in 4 years, or they'll phase it over a longer period of time, and I'd rather see actually aggressive cuts. Deficit hawks are also miffed. The GOP leadership did not go further and lower the federal matching rate for Medicare, known as the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage. Hardliners pushed for changes to the FMAP and placed a per capita cap on people who get coverage from Medicaid expansion to proposals that moderates dub red lines. In the end, trenches won that right. We're still letting the state launder money through Medicaid by paying 90% of the cost for an able-bodied adult when we pay for 57% of pregnant women, children, seniors, and disabled. Representative Keith Self, a representative from Texas, said it's a money laundering scheme by the states. The airing of grievances came as Energy and Commerce debates its portion of the bill at a meeting posed to break the record for its longest markup, 27 hours. Hardliners has pushed for significant spending cuts in the entire package, leading leadership to call for at least $1.5 trillion in slashes, $880 billion of which would come from Energy and Commerce. The panel achieved that goal according to a draft CBO analysis circulated by Democrats. The bill would reduce federal funding by roughly $912 billion over the decade, with $715 billion coming from the health provision. The scorekeeper also said 8.6 million people would lose insurance. 8.6 million people would lose insurance. Those results are now drawing scrutiny and caution from both sides of the GOP's ideological spectrum, posing a difficult balancing act for Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana, a Republican from Louisiana, while conservative complain the cuts are too small. Moderates are more guarded and appear nervous to back provisions that were not as significant as they could have been, but still leave millions of more Americans uninsured. This is what it's coming to. And it's not going to be nice. I'm still reading through it. Obviously, a lot of the draconian cuts that people were pushing for, I and others were able to prevent. So we're reading through the bill as it's written, said Representative Mark Lawler, Republican from New York, who represents a swing district. There could be some changes there too. Representative Andrew Garbarino, Republican from New York, said there are a lot of people that are unhappy with a lot of provisions. That hesitation means Johnson may have a difficult time ratcheting up Medicaid cuts to appease hardliners, as it would almost certainly be met with opposition from moderates. Cut to the chase. This is not about fiscal responsibility. This is about getting that money so they can give tax breaks to the rich and to the powerful. That's what all this jargon means. Intertwined with all the fancy language, the hitherfortos and hithertheres and blah, blah, blah. I don't even need to read any more of this article. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, millions of people are not going to have health insurance. They've been trying to gut, eliminate, tear down, and destroy the Affordable Health Care Act known as Obamacare. And when they do that, guess what? They're coming for other things next. Don't think that they're not going to do it. And they're going to look into the cameras and tell you some dumb story about this and that has nothing to do with what's happening for everyday people. And people, they're reasonable. I give people credit for being logical and for being reasonable. And they're going to be able to see through it all going into the midterm elections. People are concerned about not having a recession. They're concerned about their health insurance. They're concerned about their jobs. They're concerned about their 401ks. They're concerned about the price of groceries. They're concerned about the price of medicine. They're concerned about not having enough money to pay their utilities every month. Seniors are concerned about not being able to have moms on wheels. How many children right now, the morning breakfast program has been gutted down to nothing? I was just talking to someone on yesterday about how this program is essentially meaningless at this point in time. Keep on believing the lies. They'll catch up with them after a while. Never surrender. Never quit. Let's see, Gianna. All right, I read back to you. I do read my comments. Yes, I do. So what I'm talking about, or I was talking about rather, the MAGA GOP, how civil war is breaking out because they're all in disagreement about the Medicaid cuts, and they want the cuts to go deeper. In a nutshell, there you have it. Never surrender. Never quit.